Hey, John Ty here, and welcome to the Self-Publishing Summit. Got a fantastic guest for you today. She's a #1 New York Times bestselling author, a world-renowned transformational teacher, and an expert on happiness, success, and unconditional love. Her books include the blockbuster bestsellers Love for No Reason, Happy for No Reason, and 6 titles in the Chicken Soup for the Woman's Soul series. Between them, they sold an incredible 15 million copies and spent a total of 118 weeks in the New York Times bestseller list. She is one of the best-selling nonfiction authors of all time. She's also the host of the national PBS television special, Happy for No Reason, and is a featured teacher in the international film and book sensation, The Secret. Our guest today, Marci Shimoff. Marci, welcome to the Self-Publishing Summit.
Thank you so much, John. It's great to be here with you.
Well, thank you for coming on. So given that, oops, I've lost you there on a second. Given that brief intro there, tell us a little bit of the background in terms of how you got into publishing in the first place, because you obviously, we know you've had tremendous success. You've sold, again, I still can't get over this. I remember the first time we spoke, by the way, when I came and spoke to your Enlightened bestseller group. And I think I ever told you this, but it was one of those pinch me moments, because I'm like, I can't believe I'm talking to Marci Shimoff here.
Well, and I was thinking, I can't believe I'm talking to John Ty. So it works both ways.
You're too kind. So, I mean, 15 million books is amazing. Obviously, we'll get onto that. But how did you get started in the first place?
So, John, I never dreamed I would be a writer. As a matter of fact, I hated writing. When I was 13 years old, I had a vision of myself. I saw a professional speaker, a man named Zig Ziglar. I don't know if you're familiar with Zig Ziglar. He was very big in the U.S. And I said, that's what I'm supposed to do with my life. I saw him walking across the stage, inspiring people. And I had a vision for my life that I would be traveling the world, inspiring thousands or millions of people around the world. Had no idea how to get there. My parents were not happy about that. My dad was a dentist and they wanted me to be a dental hygienist.
Right.
But my mother teased me. She said, honey, you sure talk enough. You might as well get paid for it. So I started off as a professional speaker. And I spent a number of years teaching training programs in Fortune 500 companies and teaching self-esteem programs. And my mentor happened to be a man named Jack Canfield. Now, this was before anybody had ever heard of Jack Canfield. He hadn't written any books. He was a self-esteem guy. He was an expert in self-esteem. And I met him in 1989, and I said, that's going to be my mentor. And in 1993, he came out with the book Chicken Soup for the Soul. Now, I've only told him this part of the story very recently. And that is when he first told me that he was writing a book called Chicken Soup for the Soul. I thought, oh my God, that is the stupidest title. No one is ever going to buy that book. I was embarrassed for it. Fortunately, I didn't say anything.
Yeah.
And over the course of about a year, the book did become a success. And some people know that story, that it actually took them, they got rejected by 144 publishers, 143 publishers, and the 144th took them on. So about a year and a half after the book was out, I was speaking to audiences of maybe 100 people. It wasn't audiences of thousands around the world. And I really felt like I was hitting my head against the wall, kind of not getting any further, thinking something has to happen. I need a breakthrough. And a dear friend of mine, a woman you know named Janet Atwood, said to me, Marci, you're burned out. You need to come with me on a silent 7-day meditation retreat. And I said, you are crazy. I don't do silence. I'm a speaker. I haven't been silent for 2 hours in my life. But she was very persuasive, and she took me away with her on that silent meditation retreat. And on the 4th day, in the middle of silence, I saw a light bulb go off in my head. And I saw the words Chicken Soup for the Woman's Soul. Now, at the time, none of the other Chicken Soup books had been conceived of. There was only the original Chicken Soup out. And as soon as I saw those words, I knew that was it. I knew that was exactly what I was supposed to do. And I knew that would bring me in front of the large audiences that I had dreamed of. There was only one problem. The problem was I still had 3 more days of silence. I'd had my great epiphany and I couldn't tell anybody. But as soon as the silence was over, I ran to the closest payphone and I called up Jack and I said, I've got it, Chicken Soup for the Woman's Soul. He said, oh my God, what a great idea. He called the publisher who said, oh my God, what a great idea. And about a year later, I had my first book come out and it went to #1 on the New York Times bestseller list that week. So it was not planned that I would become a writer. The point I want to make about this particular story or experience that I had is that my vision was to inspire millions of people around the world. I thought it was going to be through speaking, but the universe had a different vehicle, and that was writing as well. So I would say to people, be open to the how of how your goal is going to be manifest.
Yeah.
Know what it is you want to experience, but be open to the how of how it's going to unfold.
Yeah, and that's a great point, especially today. You know, there are more ways than ever of getting that message out. And one of the most exciting things about a book, and we have, fiction and nonfiction authors listening, but one of the most exciting things about a book is the ability to reach so many people, get that message out, and use it as a platform to build on that. And so we'll talk about the other books as well, because that was the first one. But I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, okay, so you had the first book and it was a great idea. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's something like 250 titles now in the whole Chicken Soup.
There are. And Chicken Soup for the Woman's Soul, that book that I had that meditation about, it was the first of the specialty books out of those 250.
Yeah. So, I mean, not only was it a great idea in terms of your book, but it sort of set everything in motion for the huge success of the series beyond the original book, which is fantastic. But say, I'm sure what people are wondering is, okay, so first book, you got to New York Times bestseller. What did you do to make that happen? I mean, that's everybody's wondering, how do you get a New York Times bestseller? I mean, you have a great book, obviously, but beyond that.
Right. So there really is a science to becoming a New York Times bestseller. There's an entire strategy. And nowadays it's harder than it ever was. You need to sell about 10,000 books, depending on what category you're in. But I'm talking specifically about self-help, which comes under the advice, how-to, and miscellaneous section on the New York Times list. And what you need to do is you need these days to sell about 10,000 books in 1 week, your release week. And they count the week from a Sunday to a Saturday. And the books need to be distributed amongst a number of different channels. So they can't just be all through Amazon, or they can't just be all through a bookstore. They have to be through a number of the independent bookstores that report to the New York Times, the Amazon channel, the Barnes & Noble channel. And so there's a specific science to it. What you need to do, and I'm sure, John, you've said this a million times, because there's one secret to selling a lot of books, and that is having a platform. Having an audience already established. In fact, these days, no publisher really wants to talk to you unless you already have a platform established. You could have written the best book on the planet. You could have written, the next great book, of the century. And unless you've got a platform, a publisher doesn't want to talk with you. Which is why, by the way, I think self-publishing is so brilliant. Because what you can do is you can be building your platform while you're getting your book out there. Your book can help you build your platform. So I am, unless you've got a big platform, I am all for self-publishing these days. But still, in order to get on the New York Times list, you've got to really be able to reach those people that are going to be able to sell 10,000 books in 1 week. And John, I don't know if you want me to go to the specifics of that strategy right now, or if you want to talk about other things. So.
I mean, yeah, definitely. Because I think first of all, I'm glad you made that point, because, and I was chatting to Chris Day, who's a UK publisher, last week, and he was making the point that, advances are getting smaller, because a lot of money now is, of course, flowing through Amazon and the online sites. Less is going through the bookstores. And because of the way the old traditional publishing model works, there's less money available sort of going through that funnel, if you like, or the pie is smaller. So authors are getting smaller advances, but also agents, and therefore publishing houses as well, are even less reluctant to take a chance on new authors who don't have a platform.
More reluctant to take a chance.
Sorry, even more reluctant. Thank you. Yeah. and so, yeah, absolutely. So if you could get into some of those specifics about how you go about building a platform, that would be fantastic.
And John, you bring up a really good point, because my first book came out 19 years ago, and the world of publishing has changed dramatically in those 19 years. When Chicken Soup for the Soul was coming out, of Chicken Soup for the Woman's Soul, I was on national television, and I did media tours, media TV satellite tours, where you sit in a studio and you're on 20 interviews from different cities around the country all at the same time. And that was the big strategy. We'd go around to bookstores and do book signings. I'd have sometimes up to 400 people at a book signing. And it was a lot of media and in-store appearances. I haven't done that in 8 years. You know, book signings, it's just, it's not the way to go. Nowadays, it's all online. So everything has changed dramatically. If you'll indulge me, before we talk about the marketing and how to get on the New York Times list, I have to back up a little bit and talk about how you pick the book and what you've got to write, what you're going to write about, because I think it's critical to ultimately to getting on those, having a bestseller.
Yeah.
And I've got a philosophy that is, you must write about what you are here to write about. So you can't just write about something that might make a lot of money.
Yeah. Because
it's not going to work. You are married to the topic that you write about. You are married to it for at least 10 years.
Yeah.
You know, I wrote Happy for No Reason. It's been out 8 years, 7.5 years. And I talk about it today. You know, I'm sure I'm going to talk about it for years to come. So it's got to be something that you have a passion about. Otherwise, you will not have the energy. You won't have what it takes to make it through the tough times of getting that book published, because it's not, it takes work. I don't know anybody, I don't know any best-selling author who has made it without doing a lot of work. And the work comes through feeling a passion. So I'm going to have you ask yourself 2 questions before you go to sleep tonight. And I want you to notice what the answers are to these questions when you wake up tomorrow morning. And the 2 questions are, number 1, who am I here to serve? So be really clear who your audience is. Who are you here for? And if your answer is everyone, go deeper.
Yeah.
Because most of us are not here for everyone. Even Oprah isn't here for everyone. So I will tell you my answer to that question, who am I here for? You pick an avatar. Who is like that one person? And my avatar is somebody I call Kansas Jane. And Kansas Jane is every woman. And what I mean by every woman, she is generally a baby booming woman. So she is somewhere between the ages of 45 and 65 or 70 generally. She is doing okay with her life, anywhere from okay to great. But something's missing. She knows that something is missing in her life. And, you know, she doesn't need to struggle to pay the rent, pay the mortgage, pay the rent, or have food. She's got enough for that. So her concerns are more of, how can I find what's missing in my life? And that's, you know, it's kind of the Oprah audience. So she's maybe started a little bit on the path of self-growth, or she's pretty far along on the path of self-growth. And that's who I'm here for. So I want you to be able to answer that question as clearly as that. So that's question number 1. Then the second question, and these are questions that you're asking of your heart, not of your mind.
Okay.
And the second question is, what am I here to help them with? What problem do I solve? What answer do I solve? And so for me, the answer that I solve for them is, how can I be happier? How can I find that deeper place of true happiness that isn't gonna go away when when the next high of a new job or new relationship goes away? You know, what is that thing that's that emptiness that I'm looking for? That's what am I here for? You gotta know that. And that's what's gonna propel you forward. So you write your book with that so clearly in mind. And then I'll talk about the marketing. But John, let me just get a sense from you about your experience with those, with the importance of that position of, who am I here to serve? I believe we're each here with a destiny to serve a particular. If you've got a calling to write a book, it's because there's something that was planted in your soul. And it's because you're here to serve somebody with a particular message. And that's what I want you to be so clear about and so in touch with. So tell me your experience with that, John.
Yeah. Well, I think, first of all, just to pick up on that fantastic point in terms of choosing that avatar, or rather, yeah, being clear on who that avatar is, who the person is you're trying to serve, because you're going to write a better book. And I say, by aligning the book with you and what matters to you inside. Let me just, I keep forgetting to flip cameras here. Hang on. By aligning the book with you and what's important to you, it makes the writing easier. It makes the marketing easier, because it doesn't just stop when you finish writing the book. And, you know, it would be great if it did. But there's still more work. Personally, you know, you can see behind me this. It says the Self-Publishing Summit. My main book is Crush It with Kindle, and this goes back to me always enjoying books. I was enjoying reading, and I began writing my first book way back in 1998. It's quite a long time ago now. Long before Kindle Direct Publishing and self-publishing and all of the things that are so easily available to us now. This was back in the day where you had to get an agent before you could get in front of a publisher. So they were the gatekeepers. And I ended up, I went to all the UK agents who dealt with that kind of book. And this was a thriller. And I ended up with a full suite, a full set of about 30 rejection letters. And I'd sort of run out of agents at this point. I went through the writer's handbook, got every single one that dealt with that kind of stuff. And so I sort of shelved the project. I didn't push it through, but I came back again with another book in 2004. I finished that book, went out to all the agents, and this was a different book. This was actually a how-to book, because I'd spent 5 years working as a fitness coach, personal trainer, nutritionist. And so this was about diet and health and weight loss, being at a healthy weight. And they said, it's a good book, but it's such a saturated marketplace. We'll need a celebrity to endorse it. Otherwise, you know, we're not interested. And so, which I didn't particularly want. It was my book. I didn't want to have some celebrity, you know, taking the credit for the book, even if I could find one. So I sort of put that on the back burner. And at that point, I thought, well, you know, maybe it's never going to happen. And it wasn't until the summer of 2012 that I discovered Kindle Direct Publishing, and that was like a you know, a heavens opening kind of moment, because I suddenly realized that I could actually publish, and for the first time, there was no gatekeeper in the way, and I could let the market decide whether they wanted to read my books or not. And I've got lots of ideas for books, lots of things that interest me, but obviously the self-publishing element, it all comes back to that frustration that I held, because part of my identity for so many years, I mean, you think about it, 14 years, part of my identity was I was an unpublished author.
Yeah.
And which is, if anybody's been in that situation, they know how frustrating that is, to put hours and hours and hours of work into a book and have nothing to show for it, as it were. So for me, it's helping people get their message out. And in particular, you know, I work with a whole range of authors, but I particularly like helping authors who have got some kind of message, you know, in the how-to self-help kind of space, get that message out to people. So that's my story.
Well, I love your story, and I love that you followed what your heart was calling you to do. And you know, I'll tell one more piece of my story as it relates to this. And in about 2002, I had written 7 Chicken Soup for the Soul books, about one a year, and I was up to my neck in chicken soup. I did not want any more chicken soup. I was done. And I left. And I will tell you, people said to me, you're crazy. You know, this is a successful thing. You're walking away from this. And I said, I'm walking away because it's not my passion anymore. I can't do any more chicken soup. And I thought, well, what could I write about? And I realized that I really understood the principles of manifesting. And I thought, okay, I could write a book about success and manifesting. Basically a book about the law of attraction. This was 4 years before The Secret came out. And I started writing that book, and I realized I did not have a passion for this. I did not have a passion for success. I had the success that I wanted, but what I really had a passion for was happiness. You know, there's a saying, you teach what we most want to learn. Yeah. And I had had a lot of success, but I still wasn't deeply happy. I remember one time I had just finished giving a speech to 8,000 people. I had 3 books at the same time on the New York Times bestseller list. And I'd given a speech to 8,000 people. I had autographed 5,432 books. They'd had a massage therapist massaging my hand every
Wow.
half hour, so I didn't get carpal tunnel. And at the end of all those books, I went signing all those books. I felt like an author rock star, and I went up to my hotel room suite that they'd gotten me, and I plopped under the bed and I burst into tears. And I burst into tears because I realized I had all the success I ever wanted, but I still wasn't happy. And I had a passion to find out what I could do to be happier. And I decided that's what I'm going to write about. Now, that's an interesting thing, to write about something that you're not an expert in. I was not an expert in this. I decided I was going to become an expert and write the book. If I could find out how to be happy, then it could work for anybody. And I did all the research and I found out how to be happier, and I decided to write a book about being happier. That was Happy for No Reason. So I actually was following my passion for what I most wanted to learn. And that's something that you can do as well. You don't have to be the expert. You can interview all the experts, and by doing so, you can become the expert in synthesizing all the material into what really worked for you.
Yeah.
So that's really another key. I have a lot of people coming to me and say, but don't I already need to be an expert in the subject? You don't have to be. If you have a passion for learning about it, you can write about it.
Yeah. And I'm glad you made that point as well, because yeah, I mean, if you already are the expert and you're passionate, and that expertise and that passion align, fantastic. But I mean, that's a great story about being tremendously successful and being happy are not necessarily the same thing. And obviously you went on that journey, and any of us could do that if there's something that we really want to know about or that we're passionate about, that we can go away, interview people, do the research, become the expert, synthesize that information in a new way, bring it together in a great step-by-step format. And so really great story from and a really useful learning point there. And so you
want to do the marketing, I bet.
I want to do the, I want to get into it.
Okay.
But only if you finish, because I think this is really important as well. So if we're sort of at a proper sort of stopping point, but don't let me rush you ahead if you have more on this.
No, I'm happy to go into the marketing piece. And John, at the end or towards the end, I want to make sure that we talk about what I consider to be my secret weapon.
Okay.
It's a little weird. It's a little out there. So I'm going to build you all up for that so that you can learn to trust me a little bit before I tell you what my real secret weapon is, because it's a little scary. So marketing. I was very fortunate in that I learned from the masters, Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen. And they were brilliant at marketing of Chicken Soup for the Soul. They made a commitment early on in that book. And the commitment was they each would do 5 things a day to further that book. They called it the Rule of 5. And no day would pass without them checking off their list 5 things they did to further the book. And that was how Chicken Soup for the Soul made the bestseller list. It took a year. Nobody had heard of it. They had a small, almost bankrupt publisher take them on. And so he didn't have any money. The publisher didn't have any money to invest in the publicity. And so they did very unique kinds of things. They knew that if somebody read one of those short, very touching stories, they would be interested. So they would do things like go to hair salons and leave books for free in a hair salon, knowing that a woman sitting under a hairdryer would read a couple stories and go, I got to go out and get this. And it would spread through word of mouth. They would go to flea markets, and they would stand in the middle of the aisle at a flea market with the book open and go up to somebody and say, you got to read this story. And they would read the story and go buy the book. The thing that I've noticed about successful people is that they're willing to do things that other people aren't willing to do. You just got to be creative and willing to do what other people aren't willing to do, and willing to do 5 things a day to further the book. So that 5 things these days could be you contact 5 blogs, or you contact 3 blogs and you write 2 articles, just so you're getting the energy and the momentum going. By the way, as I said, it took about a year for Jack and Mark to have the word spread enough through grassroots that they did hit the New York Times bestseller list. They stayed on the bestseller list for 5 years, over 5 years consecutively once they made the list. So what you want is you want momentum. You want to gather your own army of followers. And you can either do that before the book is out, That's the best way. But if not, you can do that once the book is already out. You just gather your following. So that means collect an email list. Obviously, everybody talks about that these days, but it's the truth. You know, social media is important, but an email list is a million times more important. Maybe not a million times, but I was interviewing Guy Kawasaki, who wrote Ape, and he wrote a number of other great books on marketing. And I asked him, would you rather have 1 million followers on Facebook, or 100,000 followers on your email list, in your email community? He said, hands down, 100,000 in the email community, because those are the people that are really committed, and those are the people that will really respond. So, you know, it's the strategies I'm going to tell you are ones that you probably have already heard, and that is come up with a great opt-in, a free gift that you're going to give people if they give you your email address, and just start building and give value. Give value to your email list. Give them interviews. Give them free content. Give them an e-zine every few weeks. Give them whatever it is that is going to keep them so engaged with you. And there's no secret sauce to it other than really, really give. Be creative and give. Those would be my two greatest points. Be creative and give.
Yeah.
Give what people need. Give what they need. Don't just,
Yeah. And would you, and I agree on the email list, especially in particular, Facebook now is, if you've got a page or a group, less people are seeing it. You have to pay for people to see it now. The percentages that actually will see a post if you don't sponsor it is tiny, like less than 5%.
Yes.
Whereas an email list, especially, email list open rates vary, but the more you do what you just described, which is be engaged, give value, and have consistent touch points where you whether it's an interview, giving people or whatever, the better your open rate is going to be. And of course, the people opening it are the ones that are your true fans. And would you, for example, would you suggest surveying people once they're on your list to get a really clear picture of what it is that they actually want to see and what they're going to respond to?
Absolutely. That is completely, as I said, you've got to give, but you've got to give to people what they need, what they want. Yeah. And it's, so one of the great ways to do that is to survey people. Another way to get a lot of involvement and engagement is to have contests. I love having contests. To give people questionnaires or assessments. People love to get results about what type of happiness generator they are, or, where they fall on the happiness scale. So give people things that are interesting to them, like those kinds of questionnaires or assessments. And I have to say I probably don't do anything that's any different than what most people out there are doing. I will be honest, I'm not on the cutting edge of the marketing side of things. I keep up because I have my books have continued to, every book I've written has been a bestseller, and that's important in order to get the traction. It really helps get traction, and it really helps. When people ask me, why do you care about being a New York Times bestseller? And the answer is, number one, of course, credibility, but number one really is to get to the most people out there. And also it allows you to get foreign languages. My books have been out in 33 languages, and that's because of the New York Times bestseller list. But that's not for everybody. The other thing I want to let people know is you may not have the same kinds of goals. You may not need to be on the New York Times bestseller list. That's okay. If that's not your thing, don't worry about it. Don't compare yourself to people who are on the New York Times bestseller list. I had a specific path, and that was uniquely my path. We each have a unique path, and just know what yours is and follow that. Don't be out there going, oh, but I'm not this person or I'm not that person. Find out what it is you're here to do. And if it's to reach a niche of people who, just go after that niche and don't worry about being a New York Times bestseller.
Mm.
That's the thing. It's hard to be a New York Times bestseller if your niche is really narrow. And
Yeah.
if you're here to do a narrow niche, don't worry about it.
Yeah. What I will say, though, is that your point about the most important thing you can do is build an email list. I think that still stands, whether you're going after a tiny niche or you want to be #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. And I also want to bring up a point you made earlier, because I think it's really important as well, which is that you can ideally start building that platform before you get the book out and start engaging with people. But like Jack and Mark did, you can be building it afterwards as well. And they did some great grassroots marketing. And so I just want to make that point. Such an important point for people is there is no, whatever stage you're at with your book, whether it's just an idea or whether it's published and out there and it's been out there for 6 months, if you haven't started building that email list and engaging people and building that following, today is the time to start doing that, because that's how you will reach more of the kind of person that's going to be interested in your book. So I do think that's really, really, really important. And something else you mentioned earlier, Marci, which is that you said it's sort of 8 years, I think, since you were doing the book tours and things like that, and that everything now is pretty much online. Apart from obviously building the email list and building the platform, what other things are there that you do in the online space to help get the word out about the books?
So in the online space, I blogs.
Yeah.
I think that success is so heavily weighted on one thing, and it's called relationships. And so what I do is I have a lot of relationships. With people in our industry, people in the happiness field, people in the book publishing field. I genuinely like these people. I genuinely I spend my social time with them. I think they're fabulous, wonderful people, like-minded people. And I've built relationships over the years, over the 25 years I've been in this business. And those are the things that have allowed me the greatest success, is creating alliances with members of your industry. And the reason that I had these bestsellers, the two most recent ones, Happy for No Reason and Love for No Reason, is I had 468 affiliate partners for my mailings, for other people's email, using other people's email lists. And it's because I'm always giving to them. I'm always giving to people as much as I can when I want to, when it's aligned with me. I give people endorsements if it's aligned with me and I believe in them. I give people feedback. I do a gazillion interviews with people who are aligned with me. And all of that goes to build relationships. It comes back to the idea of giving. In this case, you're not giving to your audience that you're writing to, but you're giving to your colleagues. And I really found that a generous spirit is what will create the success. And so that's what I've done. And I have a program, for example, now called Your Year of Miracles, where we help people create a miraculous life or have a miraculous life over the course of a year. We have 1,800 participants from all over the world. And those have come primarily through my affiliates, all of those people I've built relationships with, sending out an email, inviting people to a free online seminar called The 3 Keys to a Miraculous Life. And I give amazing, great content during that free online seminar. Well, each time I've given that seminar, we've built the email list over 40,000 people each time. And it's through building of those relationships. Now, the numbers that I'm throwing out may seem overwhelming. They're big numbers. How am I going to get that? And you get that by starting where you are. You create affiliates who are the people who are at the level where you are, because those are the people that are more likely share their list with you, or share. You're going to trade. You're going to mail for them. They're going to mail for you, and just find something of value to give to people. As I said, I give people an online seminar. You can give people free interviews. You can give people seminars. You can give people workbooks. I've given people free workbooks with all kinds of techniques and processes in them. So that's the way to build the list.
Mm. And you mentioned the 468 affiliates for the books. So just going back to because there's you've got the book launches, if you like, and to get those 10,000 sales in a week to get onto the New York Times bestsellers, and then you've got I've got this set up so that it doesn't go backwards and forwards based on sound, which is what it normally does. I'm having to click it. I keep forgetting to put myself back on. So let's start that again. You've got the affiliates for the book launches, and then you've got the affiliates for the product launches, or the program in this case.
Yes.
Going back to the 468 affiliates for the books, obviously you're going to have them mailing within a short space of time. Can you quickly talk us through the steps to make sure that once you've built those relationships, what are the steps to running a book launch through affiliates like that?
Right. Well, there are a number of different ways of doing it these days. And one way is actually in advance of the book launch to offer a free online seminar. So your affiliates are actually mailing for not the book, but they're mailing for this free seminar or whatever it is. So that you're now gathering all of those email names, they're yours, and you mail to them for the book sale later on. And that way you've got more control of the mailing going out when it's going out. And some people prefer to actually mail for, not for a book, but for something like a free online seminar. So that's one opportunity. Another thing that people are doing is they're having their affiliates mail in advance for pre-sales. And what many people do for pre-sales is they offer the book for free. Brendan Bouchard really has done extraordinarily well doing this. His affiliates will send out for the book. You get it for free, which means you basically are paying $8 for shipping and handling. He's actually having to buy the books through the bookstores, $22, let's say. He's losing up to $14 per book. Well, why would he do that? My gosh. He actually goes up to maybe 40,000 books that way. Why would he do that? That's a whole lot of money that he's losing. It's $500,000. Because what he's now gathered is he's gathered in a wonderful email list of those, let's say, new 40,000 people, and he's upselling them to his programs, for which on one of his book launches, that upsell alone, he made over $2 million. And his affiliates were happy because they made money on the upsell, and so they were making money as well, rather than just on a book sale. So,
and I'm smiling here because I think the last 3 of Brendan's books I've got. This is how he sold them to me. I mean, I'm a fan of Brendan's anyway, and I bought his programs before he started launching his books this way. But and
I have too. I bought them all that way as well. And Brendan is a brilliant marketer, and he has fantastic content that he offers to people. So I tend to think that it's harder to get affiliates to mail just for a book launch itself, because you're not really they're not getting any money. So it's easier to have them launch for something that you're going to be selling them into later, where they're going to be upsold to some other kind of a product. And I'll be honest, I did not run, I've run 3 New York Times bestseller campaigns for my books, and they get harder each time. My first one was For Happy for No Reason in 2008. My second one was for the paperback of that in 2009. And my third was for the hardback of Love for No Reason in 2011. And they were number 2 and 3 on the New York Times bestseller list. So they worked, but it was a lot of work. And I hired Hasmark Publishing, Judy O'Barron, to run those launches. I got the affiliates, but she ran the launches because it was just too much work for me to do at the time. The other thing that I want to mention, and we haven't talked about it yet, is a great strategy. I call it building your own army. And that is.
Sorry, Marci. Before we do that, let me just hold that thought 1 second.
Okay.
I just want to say to people, again, sorry about that. I spiked the mic there. Is that Brendan and his spending $500,000 on books and doing a $2 million of affiliate sales. might sound a bit intimidating to somebody, but you again, picking up on the point you made earlier, which is, work with people that are, at a similar level to you, have them mail for you. You don't have to be, you don't have to do it Brendan's way, where you buy all the books, and you don't have to be expecting to do millions of dollars, and you don't necessarily have to be hitting it out of the park and getting a New York Times bestseller the first time. But, do it on a smaller scale, if needs be, and get the experience, because it's like, this is the first time I've done a virtual summit, and it's been a huge amount of work, like way more than I expected. And I kind of knew what to expect because I talked to people that run summits, but it's been a huge amount of work. I've got all sorts of things wrong, but I know that if I do one of these again, it'll be a lot easier, a lot smoother. And it's everything, just do it. You will get better with practice. So I just wanted to make that point, because I know that for somebody just starting out, the numbers that we talk about sometimes can be a little bit intimidating. So I just wanted to make that point. Over to you.
John, I'm so glad you made that point, because, I stop myself sometimes and I think about, okay, how would I respond to hearing what I had just said? And I would feel overwhelmed. And that's why I really want to make the point that you do what you're here to do. And it takes time. You need patience. You need patience. You need faith, and you need a passion for what you're doing. Because without those, what's the point? It doesn't really work. So It's not like, oh, this happened overnight. And but I want the journey to feel good to people. What I know from my research on happiness is, after you go for all that success, as I shared earlier, it doesn't bring you happiness necessarily. I know almost all of the top authors in the self-help field. And I'll say that some of them are really happy and doing great, and many of them are not.
Yeah.
So it doesn't guarantee what it is you're looking for, which is what we're all looking for, is happiness. What we all really want is to be happy. So don't think that, oh, once I get that bestseller, that's it, I'm going to be happy. You want to go for the bestseller as long as it's really bringing you joy. Yeah, of course you're going to have challenges along the way, but just make sure you're enjoying the journey along the way. And please don't get intimidated by anything that I'm saying, because I promise you, if I can do this, you can do this. There's nothing special in any way about me or any of these other people that I know that are doing this. The only difference is that they have a passion. Perhaps the commonalities is that they have a passion for what they're doing, and they're willing to go an extra mile. They're willing to do 5 things a day. So that's my take on that piece. So
Good,
there's one other piece that I want to mention before I get into my secret weapon.
Yeah.
I'll get into that in just a moment. But the other thing is to build an army, and maybe I should use a different analogy for that, but build a community of people who are going to go out and help spread your word for you. I call them ambassadors. So I have my happiness ambassadors and I have my love ambassadors. And these are people who really want to teach about happiness and about unconditional love. And so I offered them a program where I let them teach my courses. And all they had to do was buy 25 or 50 books when they came out. And they bought them basically they bought them through me so I could put them through to the right bookstores. This was to get on the New York Times bestseller list, but they bought them at the retail price. And so, for example, 25 books, I think they spent $698. But what I gave them were the 25 books, but also a program that would allow them to go out and teach the happiness course based on Happy for No Reason. And I gave them the PowerPoint, I gave them an outline, I gave them the handouts that they would give to people, and I gave them some live training with me that's now recorded and people can buy it. And it's like buying a course in a box to be able to go teach.
Yeah.
And that way they had the books, they would go out and sell the books to the people in their class. It didn't cost them any money. They could make the money back by selling the books.
Yeah.
If they bought 50 books, they would do a longer course. They could teach a longer program. And that was, to me, that's a fantastic way to get your message out, because it allows you to not be the only distributor of your message, but to have other people out there sharing your message as well. And people would say to me, but then they're out there competing against you for, for speeches. I don't consider it that at all. I'm going to be speaking to the audiences that are drawn to speak to me, that can pay my fee. They're going to be speaking to other audiences. So be giving. And I mean, really, I gave them that course to teach for free because I wanted it out there. And it's served me in the long run.
That's great. I haven't heard that strategy before, so that's really cool. Yeah. Good. So I'm looking at the clock as well. And so are we ready for the secret weapon, do you think?
I think we're probably ready for the secret weapon. So, all right. And this is a little out there, but I'm very, very practical. And so I'll tell you that I only use things that work because I really want what's practical. And that is, my secret weapon is something called Vedic astrology. Vedic astrology is the astrology of East India, from the Vedas. It's from the same tradition as yoga or Ayurvedic medicine. And it's very precise about the timing of various events. And I will tell you that in 1990, I had a Vedic astrology reading where the astrologer told me that in September of 1996, I would have a best-selling book. And I looked at him and I said, "You're crazy. I don't write. I hate writing. I don't have anything to write about. That's not going to happen." And I went away from that reading, and I thought that was a waste of my money. Well, September 15th, 1996, my first book came out and did go to #1 on the New York Times list that week. So that was shocking. I mean, it was like, wow. 6 years earlier, that was predicted. Before my first book came out, before Chicken Soup for the Soul, Woman's Soul came out, about 3 or 4 months beforehand, the astrologer said to me, "Watch out, you're going to have another book that comes out next year." And he gave me the time frame. And I said, "You're crazy. I don't have anything to write about. One, already this would be 2 books of Chicken Soup for the Soul. The world couldn't handle a 3rd Chicken Soup for the Soul book. That would be way too much." He said, no, another book's going to come out, and you should think about writing a book for mothers. So I went to Jack and I said, "Well, what about Chicken Soup for the Mother's Soul?" And he said, "I think that'd be really good." So a year later, in fact, Chicken Soup for the Mother's Soul came out. Sold 3 million copies. Wow. I will tell you, that 1-hour Vedic astrology reading made me a lot of money. And even in, I told you that in 2002, I decided to not write any more Chicken Soup for the Soul books. And I kind of went through a lull in my career. And I started to feel like, oh my gosh, I'm a one-hit wonder. And I went back to the astrologer and I said, "What's going on here?" This was around 2004. He said, no worries. Something's going to come along in 2006 that's going to be bigger than Chicken Soup for the Soul. And it's going to propel you back into the limelight. And I thought, you're crazy. What could be bigger than Chicken Soup for the Soul? And sure enough, 2006, The Secret came out and was bigger than Chicken Soup for the Soul. And I happened to be in it, and that did propel me back into sort of the big stage. And that was a foundation for Happy for No Reason for me, and for Love for No Reason. And so I have found that Vedic astrology has been very, very accurate. And I use it in 3 ways. I use it to tell me the trends in general for what kinds of timing I have for putting a book out. Mm-hmm. I use it, secondly, to make sure that the topics that I'm looking at are actually in alignment with what is sort of favored for me. And the third way is I use it for specific dates. Specific dates for signing of contracts, specific dates for launching of books. And, there's a saying that you want to set sail when the wind is good. Yeah. Well, you want to launch something when the timing is good. And I've shared this with a number of my other colleagues in the author arena, and and many of them use this strategy. So I always tell people, don't take my word for anything. Use your own life as an experiment. Try it out yourself and see if it works. I will tell you that the Vedic astrologer that I use is a man named Bill Levacy, Levacy. His website is vedicsky.com. I get nothing out of sharing this information with you other than it's what's worked for me. So that I call my secret weapon.
Cool. That's a very powerful weapon, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a part of the equation. I think that timing is a part of the whole equation. The equation really is have a passion for what you're writing about, do 5 things a day to propel yourself forward, really, really build your relationships, because the support system around you and the relationships are the alliances are what's going to put you forward, and use right timing. I think those 4 things, you've got what you need.
Yeah. And just picking up on the time thing, weirdly enough, earlier today I was reading an article. Actually, it was an email from Peter Diamandis, and he'd done there'd been a survey of very successful entrepreneurs, and the top 5 things that were sort of predictors of success. And the most important one of the 5, it wasn't nothing to do with it wasn't finance or anything like that. It was getting the timing right. And so I like, and absolutely no reason why that shouldn't be just as important with books as well. And so, great stuff. Be aligned, pick something you're passionate about, build those relationships, get the timing right, and the relationships as well, obviously.
And do the 5 things a day. So it's baby steps. That's the thing. People get overwhelmed. They think, oh my God, I got to do everything. No, you do 5 things a day. Just make your little list every day. What are the 5 things you're going to do to forward your writing of your book, or your publishing of your book, or you're building your email list?
And I would add to that. Let me just switch back. Yeah, I would add to that, as well as building that success and all of that stuff. Think about the happiness component as well, which is great because it's something you teach. So on that point, you've tell us how people can find out more about both, the happiness side of what you do, those books, but also the programs you mentioned as well.
Good. So there are 3 different ways that you can connect with what I'm doing right now, what I'm passionate about in my life. The first is through happyfornoreason.com. And if you do go there, we have, as I mentioned earlier, we have a workbook. It's got 21 of the main happiness habits, and all of the techniques that go with it, and the happiness self-assessment. So you can get that as my gift if you go to happyfornoreason.com. The second thing I'm most excited about right now is Your Year of Miracles. You can go to youryearofmiracles.com, and you can listen to this online seminar, The 3 Secrets to Living a Miraculous Life. And then finally, I also teach a program, very limited program, it's called the Enlightened Bestseller Program. And John, you've been a part of that. Thank you so much for your brilliance with that. And I teach that with Janet and Chris Atwood and Jeff Affleck. We take 12 people at a time, and we really focus in on you to help you write your Enlightened Bestseller. So those are the 3 ways, and that's enlightenedbestseller.com.
Yeah, which is a fantastic way for anybody listening. Just a fantastic way of getting some top coaching, because it's almost like a boot camp weekend, isn't it? And
it really is. It really is.
Several, the 3 of you, and New York Times best-selling authors, and Jeff is a great marketer, and we met through that, and it was a fantastic talking to your group. So great. I just want to say a huge thank you. It's always fun talking to you. Thank you for being part of the summit, first of all, and thank you for sharing some really, really cool stuff. And I think some really fundamental principles. They're not sort of little marketing gimmicks that are going to change in a 6 months' time. Everything that you shared with us today is just fundamental to building long-term success. So thank you so much for that, Marci, and thanks for being part of the Self-Publishing Summit.
Well, John, I want to thank you, because I have to tell you, you do everything that I've talked about. I really see it. The first time you did an interview for our Enlightened Bestseller program, you were just from the first minute or two, I got that you are passionate about what you're doing. You're a really good guy, and you really have great value that you give to people. And I'm so delighted to get to be part of the Self-Publishing Summit. And I'm a big John Ty fan. So yay, Sean.
Thank you, Marci. So yeah, big thank you. Fantastic having you on. People are going to love this. I know they are. So thanks again, Marci, and let's talk soon. Cheers.
All right, thank you. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.